before then, it is a Monday. What do we do on Monday after a Syracuse football game? We talk to our guy, Adam Terry. Without further ado, our conversation looking back at UNLV. Coming down in 3, 2, and 1. Well, he's back on the East Coast here. It's our weekly visit with our guy, Adam Terry. And, man, Adam, there's about 8 million things to talk about from that game Friday night. Good, bad, ugly, great, and otherwise. But what did it tell you about this team that they were able to somehow pull that puppy out of the fire in overtime?
Well, it goes to show the resiliency and, the toughness of the team. When you're up and you're in a situation where all of a sudden you give up the lead, sometimes that can deflate the sails. And I think it did for a little bit, but also, you got a bunch of guys that have been in the fire before. You look at a guy like Kyle McCord and on offense, and he was able to rally it. And then LaQuinn Allen looked like he went out for a little bit with a lower body injury and comes back in and gets to seal the deal in overtime. So you look at those guys, Arante Gadsden, hey, OG, nice to see you. He came back with a vengeance, and, offensively it was that. And then defensively it was just, there was a lot of looks given to him. Mm-hmm. So I applaud them on the ability to adapt, and especially with a new quarterback coming into the game. It was a good win, right? It wasn't sexy. There was nothing where you're like, oh wow, this was a decisive win. It was one that you come out of there, you feel good coming into the NC State week. And, I think everybody felt a relief of, hey, we closed this deal out.
Yeah, certainly, especially given the way it went. We'll get into the special teams because it's one where you felt like you should have been up by more. So when you do lock it down, there had to be a big sigh of relief. Let's start with LaQuinn here because you mentioned, man, he was clearly banged up. I want to say it happened early in the third quarter. Had a wrap around the left knee. Might have been the second quarter for the remainder of the game. We saw some of his quotes after. Like he's like, yeah, I was in a lot of pain, but I wasn't coming out. I mean, we all know he's a tough guy, right? That was an impressive performance to do when you were pretty much on one wheel there for the second half.
Yeah, it just goes to show the leadership and the character of the individual. I mean, he gutted it out, and applaud Yasin Willis. He goes in and does a fantastic job, averaging 7.8 a carry. Like that's a pretty sizable feat considering a couple weeks ago we couldn't run the football, and then for LaQuinn to seal the deal with that. You just love what that kid is able to do, and we know he can pop off the big runs. And this one was a little bit ground and pound. And kudos to the offensive line, and kudos to Dale Williams, the offensive line coach, to get this thing going in the right direction. Now you're down the home stretch, right? You've created an opportunity for yourself, and we have in the past, right? Last couple of years, we've created an opportunity for ourselves, but I think this is a little bit different leadership, and for the most part, I think the guys are going to attack this next couple of weeks. But this is the one right in front of you. You've got NC State in the sights, and then from NC State, you get a bye week. So no holds bars, take the win and move on to the game down in Raleigh.
Yeah, and NC State certainly feels a lot more doable down there than it often has in years past. They have not been looking great here. They just lost to Wake Forest over the weekend. We got Adam Terry with us, our weekly Monday visit. It feels like, Kyle McCord, he's literally throwing more passes by a wide margin than anyone in the country. I think the stat was from David Hale over the weekend. He's averaging 7 more attempts a game than anyone else. I know a lot of them are long handoff types, but man, you feel he's made a couple mistakes, right? But you feel pretty good with this guy being the one that's making the decisions for this offense right now.
Well, you look at it, and the decisions that have been made. They're he's been in a fantastic situation. You've seen a couple picks here and there, but also that is trumped by the fact of the touchdown to interception ratio. So you like what he's capable of doing, and I've said it from probably the Stanford game up until this game. If you keep him on his feet, you've got a really good shot of beating anybody in the country.
Yeah. What do you make of the O-line play here, Adam? Obviously, it's not been great. Kyle's, he's taking some hits, but he's getting the ball out quickly. How have you noticed the O-line evolving here through 5 games, and how Kyle is using his game, his a little bit of scrambling, a little bit of quick game to work around maybe some of their deficiencies?
Well, you've got one returning starter, right? That's Big General and Big General Reed. You look at the situation from there and you build your way out. You've got a lot of guys with experience, and they might have experience elsewhere. If you look at Saban Washington, his quick stint in Colorado as well as Kent State, and then you look at Weatherspoon, the left tackle, heralded career coming out of an HBCU at Howard, and then sprinkling in the guard situation. But they're gelling, right? There's a certain level of, it's no different than a quarterback to a wide receiver connection. It develops over a course of time with the offensive line. It's the same thing. Knowing when you're walking to the line of scrimmage, you no longer have to talk. You can, give that, hey man, and exactly you're on the same wavelength. And that's the thing that comes with a duration of time. And you can start to see that build. But it is. I mean, it's no different than anything else. The more wins that you get, the tougher the competition all of a sudden becomes, because they're trying to make a statement too. So there's been some times where they don't look as good as they could, and then you go into a situation, that same play or something similar, and they've got it locked down. So the adaptation and the resiliency of these guys is, they're coming along. It's coming along well, and now when you start getting some of these ACC pass rushers, that's really where it's going to, that's really where the rubber hits the road, is the guys. You look at Bailey from Stanford, and he was a solid pass rusher. He gave us some problems. So that's up to Jeff Nixon and really getting that dialed in with Dale Williams. If we need some help, do we put a tight end over there? Do we chip people out? And, that's just part of the game, because those guys run faster than we do going backwards.
Yeah, and you figure, most of the teams left, they're going to have a guy or 2 or 3 like that Syracuse is going to have to deal with at some point. Adam Terry with us. On defense, Adam, you mentioned it, you gave up 41, but it felt like, man, they made some plays when necessary. I'm looking at all 3 levels, right? Like Fadil Diggs was doing stuff up front. We've seen Justin Barrett now as a linebacker. He was in the backfield all game, certainly in run defense. And Deuce Chestnut, I'm looking at him on the back end making plays. What are you noticing about this defense starting to develop? It feels like they have options now at various spots on the field.
Yeah, you got to love everything that comes from Diggs. I mean, he can put his hand in the dirt. He can go into a 2-point stance. He can play linebacker. He's that Swiss Army knife right now that Syracuse needed, especially with Marlowe Wax going down. And then the guy that kind of steps into that role, he's not Marlowe by any stretch of the imagination, but, Justin Barron comes in with a little bit different. He's quicker. He moves around. He does some stuff on the perimeter. But I think the leadership out of Justin Barron is a huge thing. And then Deuce Chestnut just being solid in the back end, being able to come down and be physical in the run game when he needs to, but then also be able to get into coverage. I think the biggest thing with the defense right now, it's going to be the health of the defense. Can we get healthier over the course of the season? We sustained some injuries and things along that nature. But the biggest thing with the defense that I see is when you come up and you make a tackle, make the tackle, right? Be sure in the tackles, whether that's, hey, I'm going to blow him up, or, hey, I'm going to wrap him up so when the cavalry comes, we have an opportunity to pop this ball loose. And that's the biggest thing that I see out of them, is just the health of the defense. And then, you see each week one guy start to get a little bit better, or, they get a couple more plays, or a TFL, or a sack, or an interception. And that's all going to be good coming down the stretch, because that's having multiple guys in there and having game time experience, and not just mop-up minutes, but real-life game situation. That's going to bode well for this last stretch.
Yeah, you mentioned the health. I mean, like when Jaden Bellamy, when he left, it was like, oh man, they're running out of corners, but he gets back in the game, and we'll see when various guys get back. If Marlowe can get back, maybe sometime this month, would certainly be a big enhancement to the defense going forward. All right, Adam, we've waited too long. Probably we got to hit the elephant in the room, and that is special teams right now, because I don't even know how you win a game where the punting game did what it did there with technically it was one block, but realistically it was two. What are you seeing on plays like that, Adam? Because I don't know. I go back. How long has this three-man wall been in play? It's like 15, 20 years now. I just don't recall seeing a team get exploited like that in this way in a really long time.
Well, when I was coming out of college, that's when the big shield was starting to go in there, and the three-man surface and the back end in order to do it. But it is. I mean, you've got to look at what you're doing. There were a lot of guys coming free, so it wasn't like one or two. I think on the punt block, I think there were 3, maybe 4 guys that were coming free. It's just look at the scheme and say, okay, well, what's our last line of defense? Can we solidify that with one more person? And I think the biggest thing right now is not coverage, right? You got to get the ball off the cover. So if you lack a little bit of coverage ability and once the ball is punted, so be it, right? But you got to get that punt off in order to turn the field. And one of our biggest weapons, and historically at Syracuse, the punter has been a huge weapon for us. Stonehouse can get that ball down the field. So give him the ability to knock that ball down the field, flip the field, and get down there. But I mean, UNLV is a good special teams team. They've shown it, and it is the elephant in the room. We've seen blunders on special teams, and it didn't catch us in this game, but it is going to catch us. And hopefully it doesn't by the end of the season, but it has caught us and will continue to catch us if it's not looked at.
Yeah, especially with the literally getting a punt off like that. Is that a simple scheme fix, Adam? Is that personnel? What are you seeing there? Because you said it, like Syracuse special teams, I said this the other day, is like for my entire life are like at minimum generally like solid and oft excellent. So I'm not used to dealing with this. Is this a simple fix, or is this when things go haywire like this, is it complicated to get back on track?
That's a good one, right? And for me, the biggest thing is, first it's scheme, right? Like, hey, are we doing the correct thing? Mm-hmm. Secondly, it's personnel. If somebody needs a blow and it's an opportunity to get them off the field, well, I don't think that's the case anymore. You might have to get them off the field on a defense or an offensive play in order to make sure that this is game-changing. Matt and I were in the booth and we were talking about it, and we were like, hey, what's going to be this game-changing play for Syracuse? And, well, it wasn't for Syracuse. It was conversely to the opposite side with UNLV. But it was that pump block, and that could have had devastating ripple effects throughout. And they were able to manage to come back. But it goes back to alignment, assignment, technique, right? Are we where we're supposed to be? Is it the right call, right? And then do we know who we're going to? And it seems as though there could have been instances where they may have not known, because there were a couple more than one guy running free. Mm-hmm. And then it's the technique. Are they sound technically with what they're supposed to be doing? It seems like they're trying to jam guys at the line of scrimmage, and we're getting beat. And then that shield is there for that little last bit of protection. But with a 2-man shield, we're getting run around, opposed to a 3-man shield where we can kind of either really hunker down if the rush is coming up the middle, or we can spray out like, shotgun in order to get those guys that are coming free.
Yeah, more shield. I'm for more shield. Let's get more shield for Stonehouse, whatever they got to do at this point. Because I guess
more cowbell.
Yeah,
a little bit more cowbell.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's all I'm saying here. But I guess the crazy part too, and I think this both probably kind of speaks to Fran Brown. Like, one, he's a first-time head coach, and you're figuring everything out all at once. The second thing is, like, teams that have that happen lose. Like if that happens to you twice in one game, you without looking at stats, man, you lose the game. It's got to go to the dart, right? The T. It's got to go right to the toughness of this team to be able to get past stuff like that.
I mean, it is, because that is a deflating. That's one that really can put people away on the sideline. I felt earlier in the game when we started going, I just kept saying, hey, we get to 21-0, we put them away. It's really, now it's in our hands. You can grind the clock. We allow them back in. This was the opposite point. This pump block, I was like, ooh, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if we're coming back from this right now. Like, they have a full head of steam. But then you look at it and you go, okay, well, it is that toughness, and it's a resiliency of some older guys there that really calm everybody down, get them going, get them focused, and then once that occurs, you can just see this demeanor of this toughness, this physicality, this willingness to do whatever it takes. You know, if I got to go play special teams, I think there might be a couple more starters that may play special teams, or there might be one or two starters that are off of special teams because they need somebody that's in there with fresh legs. So that toughness factor of what they're doing, and it was on full exhibition, right? Like, it was fully exhibited on this game, and it was a fun game to watch. It was a toss and turn. There were moments where you're like, "Oh, this is in the bag. They're going to run away with it." And then the opposite of that is like, "Oh, okay, I don't know if we come back from that." But you know, I think the atmosphere on the plane, everybody was excited about the win. This was a very solid, quality win, and UNLV is a good team, and they're going to continue to do a lot of stuff in the Mountain West. And Syracuse stole one, and I don't know if I should say stole one. They closed it out, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a fluke. You spotted the ball up, and they were able to close this one out.
And it is a win. It had every possible emotion it could have there on Friday night. It was a heck of a football game for sure. All right, Adam, last thing. Looking ahead to NC State, you know, I said this all off season. I'm like, man, Syracuse never does well at NC State. They were supposed to be good. I thought it was the hardest game on the schedule. Now we've watched the last month of football here. It doesn't really seem the case anymore. What are you sensing with NC State this week? It feels like another opportunity for Syracuse here.
Huge opportunity. It is one where at the beginning of the season, NC State was highly regarded, highly ranked, and you know, with a couple injuries down there, I think they're not the team that we thought they were, and we'll see if the quarterback after that big hit he took is up and ready. I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. So, you know, for Syracuse, it is a statement game. I think this is one where at the beginning of the season, you're like, hey, if we go down there and we squeak out a win, you know, that's great. But I also think right now it's go down there and close one out and have more of a decisive win. And that's not necessarily on the scoreboard, but that's out on the field, alignment, assignment, execution. You know, you fully buy into and you fully go out there, and it's the Dart mentality of Fran Brown, you know, and detailed accountability, relentless and tough. Like, go out there and do it, and that's what this game is.
Yeah, they got the tough part locked down, and it got them the win for sure this last Friday in Vegas. All right, Adam, good to chat. Enjoy the trip down to Carolina. We'll talk again next Monday.
All right, sounds good, man.
There he is, our guy Adam Terry, our weekly Monday conversation, breaking down what was what a wild game that was. What a wild game. I mean, that went from blowout for Syracuse to, oh, my God, the wheels fell off, to, okay, nice drive to end the first half, to, ooh, strong start to the second half, to, oh, my God, the wheels fell off again, to, ooh, they tied the game up, to overtime, to, like, hold your breath on extra points, to, well, they can't get a punt off, to, look, when Allen ran over a guy, oh, they won the game.